Hello, my name is Joe. I'm an esports coach. I've been coaching for the last couple years, and this is a replay analysis for Reddit user You Done Day. I hope this helps you.
Dire team ban.
I didn't actually watch the drafting phase, so I think it'll be interesting to see how the draft goes. There were some issues with disconnect in the mid game, which probably led to the loss more than any specific mistakes that you made. However, you made some mistakes, and after the person came back, you weren't playing to recover, and that caused you to lose the game. So the game was winnable from what I was looking at, but it was awkward because of that disconnect.
The undying waits.
Your turn to pick.
So they're drafting strong mid and strong laning support. Typically strong laner and ganking support.
5 seconds remaining.
Not necessarily the strong laner. Not necessarily a strong laner, but double stun does make a dangerous lane.
Anti-mage.
1, 2, 3 heroes you can mana void, so that's a good pick for the anti-mage. And then it counters the Spectre in terms of when it comes online. However, Spectre has had the ability to draft for an earlier time with drums into Manta rather than like Radiance. Looking at the scoreboard and item timings, the Spectre didn't have enough space to come online, and that probably led to the anti-mage winning the game for them. Your lineup says you want to fight them. Their lineup says they want to fight you and take. They have 1 tower taker. You have 2, maybe 3 tower takers. So I think your draft is actually better than theirs. However, the anti-mage came online sooner, and you couldn't do anything to stop it. Whoops. So they swapped? Okay, that's what happened. They swapped heroes. That's what that was. Cool. So speed through the laning phase. The only thing that I can talk about, you had a couple issues with not flying yourself preemptive regen as soon as you saw what their draft was. Maybe you were too focused on fighting them, but you need to queue up your regen, queue up your next items. There's nothing in your quick buy right now, and that makes it so you have more gold in your pocket than you actually need while you're laning, and it's not doing anything to help you lane. Second, you're against an anti-mage and an undying. And specifically, the anti-mage has a damage reduction, and he's really weak, level 1, 2, maybe 3, except if he's burning your mana. And Firestorm has 3 uses based on your mana, but this passive gives you a whole bunch of damage. And with that physical damage, you can actually hit the anti-mage a lot and make sure it doesn't really matter that he's burning your mana. And then you don't have to spend all this money on the mangoes. So I do like the level 1 Firestorm, because it doubles in damage almost. Like it's your best early game scaling spell. It's better late game because of the percentage HP burn. And it works better with Pit of Malice when you can actually keep people in the pit. However, laning, this is probably your better skill, because now you're already out of mana, you've only done half of his HP, and it'd be better if you were hitting him.
Dire's courier has been killed.
Hitting him any chance you got. If you had a stick right now, you'd have full stick charges, and then you could use it when you were max HP again, because you're missing a lot of HP, and these tangos just aren't cutting it. Almost killed the Undying. Aren't in position to get that creep. You get a pull off, so good job, Lena. We have some items on the courier, so I think that helps. Or is that just your CS? We used it. Yeah, so we bought the stuff. So that was fine. It would have been better if this was queued. You see the Undying, you immediately queue a magic stick. See the anti-mage queue up some mangoes. The clarity probably you don't need, because if you want to actually lane against these people, you're not going to be able to use it because the Undying just soul rips you, the anti-mage blinks on you, breaks your clarity, something. I just go another mango, and you have the gold for it, so just go another mango.
Dire's courier has been killed.
You have 2 points in Firestorm, but you can't use a Firestorm because you have no mana, and 1 mango is not enough for your Firestorm because it's 110. This gives you 70, and you have 0 stick charges because you haven't been fighting the Undying. You didn't have this in your inventory at the start, so now you can't use that for that. And then the clarity takes 30 seconds of not fighting the enemy, so another point in the Atrophy Aura rather than the Firestorm would have been better. And because you don't have queued items, you can't purchase your items right now because you have 317 gold you're just not using. We went from 0 to 70, that's a mango. We got 1 Firestorm out of that clarity. So you almost got the full usage out of it. But imagine if we had 1, 1, and 2 here instead of 2 and 2. We could have actually killed the anti-mage because he would have been rooted. He can't break out. You can hit him twice. Sets up for the Lena's spell.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Let's look at anti-mage's magic resistance. He's got 36% magic resistance and 31% physical, so you doing more physical damage actually helps. And you can't use this Firestorm. And this pushes the wave anyway, because if we pause, I can't click on... Okay, so I can't click on your creeps. Damage reduced by 25%, that means your creeps will actually push just by you standing near them. So there's no reason to have to Firestorm the wave to get it under his tower. Just having 1 is fine. I didn't see you check his regen, I didn't see you check his regen. You're just hitting him. Don't know what they have. They have 1 more tango. He has a stick and ring of regen.
Vanished.
You get a kill on the Undying, but if you had Pit of Malice instead, which is less mana, you could have actually killed him there.
Dire's top tower
Sure, the
is under
Firestorm is
attack.
good, but it's not doing as much damage as you would out of just hitting him for 2 seconds. 1.2, and then Lena's stun is another 1.2. How long is Lena's? 1.6, so yeah, you could hit him like 3 times, and you would have more damage. You'd have
Dire's top tower
like
is under
200
attack.
damage, and you just hit the anti-mage. So physical damage against anti-mage is good early, especially if he's going spell shield.
Dire's structures are fortified.
Then Lena disconnects around this time, and then you just have to lane 1v2. And that sucks. So now you have a bit of Malice, but there's no Lena to help break the tombstone, and then you just kind of die. Whoops. Unfortunate. So this ends up being your first death. Your second death doesn't come until you start defending this tower, and I think you defend it weird. Before we keep going, I want to talk about defensive and offensive roles. Like, we have Offlane in position 3, and you end up building most of the support aura items for your team because you're very tanky and you're alive long enough to provide them these auras. You can stand in the middle of the fight and give it to more of your teammates, things like that. But defensive and offensive positions revolve around what you're doing with the map rather than how you're interacting with your team. And when your teammates aren't interacting with the map correctly, it doesn't matter if you are playing position 3 and you're buying these aura items for your team. You just need to make sure that the map is working for you. And that is probably why you lost, because you won some fights and you took objectives, but they weren't the right objectives, and then the enemy team just kind of takes the right objectives, and then you lose. And I think that's where it's coming through. So as a hero, Underlord defensively is good at range D-push, because he's very tanky. So he can kind of walk up to the wave, he can put down his Pit of Malice and Firestorm, and then the wave is gone. And then you just back off. If they chase you, the wave isn't under the tower. Tier 2 tower activates backdoor protection. Let's turn on free camera and see. Free camera. They're not hitting it, but backdoor protection on tier 2s and tier 3s prevent them from taking the tower very quickly. And then you also have the ability, when you get a bunch of damage, to be the tower hitter. So you can split push, and then with your Dark Rift, you can TP without having to channel. And is this a channeled ability? Dispellable, not dispellable. Dark Rift goes on to cooldown if the thing dies or if you die. If it is cancelled in this way or the target unit dies. So I don't think this can be cancelled as a TP as long as you don't die. So you can split push when you get this damage from the creeps, and the more you get this, the better split pusher you are, as long as you have some points in Firestorm. So these two plus this means you can hit towers. Otherwise, you're just going to sit at the tower and defend. So until you get Dark Rift, you're not putting any threat in terms of towers, and you're not split pushing. And that helps delay the game for your Spectre, who kind of wins late game against Anti-Mage, because Anti-Mage can't really kill Spectre. The damage reduction and the reflected damage and the fact that maybe Anti-Mage doesn't die to Spectre, but Spectre just kills his team. Like, Spectre overwhelms the enemy team with the illusions that can't be killed, just doing more damage, reflecting damage back, and then just kind of sitting outside their base while Anti-Mage is trying to split push, trying to get towers. You have a Void Spirit that can deal with the Anti-Mage split pushing. You have Alina that can kill the Anti-Mage. You have Shadow Shaman who can stop him from split pushing for long enough for you guys to get a tower. You can relocate to try and kill somebody. I don't know. Lots of different options you have that, as long as your Spectre comes online, they can't really deal with. So just delaying the game, defensively de-pushing, and another option, the cast point on your Pit of Malice is actually really fast. The problem is you don't have a Blink Dagger. You don't have a Blink Dagger, and the cast range on this is really small, so you have to walk up to people, and you are really slow. So you can kind of be the person that cancels TP, but that would be better left to Shaman, who's got an instant Hex, and maybe Lina, who doesn't really need to aim the LSA as long as they're trying to TP. And then Void can kind of do it. So there's better options for people who are going to be canceling TPs. If they're sitting 5 heroes under a tower they can't take because of backdoor protection, they're going to TP to deal with the people that are split pushing, like Void Spirit, Spectre, maybe Shadow Shaman. Like, you could. You and Lina are probably the best people to de-push. Shadow Shaman can't kill the creep wave with just one Ether Shock until he gets his talent. He can kind of de-push. And everybody kind of takes towers except for Spectre. So you're just trying to let Spectre get farm. You guys take towers, split push, stall the objective, whatever you can. If nobody is putting pressure on any towers, you can do that as well, as long as you get your ultimate. So we just kind of need to play this out better and not die. Offensively, we can talk about that, but in this game, you played like you were ahead, but you were losing because they had 10 plus kills on you. Lina was dead or AFK for 5-10 minutes. Something like that. Came back at 13 to 15, I think. And between 10 minutes and 20 minutes is where the anti-mage ended up getting a net worth lead on you guys. Game is paused. If I jump ahead, it doesn't unpause. So we're just going to speed through it and hope it comes back. 3, 2, 1, keeps pausing. The other thing that I want to note
is under attack.
Where is Anti-Mage? So at this point, he's got 43 magic resist and physical resist is 28. In order for you to kill him, you need physical damage, or you need a lot of magical damage. Where is his HP? So 760 times 1.43. 760 times 1.43 gives you about 1100 HP, and he's got a stick, so 1100. How much is this? 10 charges at 15 each, so a full stick would be 150 HP. So he's got 760 plus 150 is 910 times 1.43 gives you 1,301.3 effective HP against magic damage. And if you can burst him with the magic damage and you have some physical in there, you can probably burst him with just all physical if you have that same amount. So we'll just do the calculation based on that. Void Spirit does 130 burst. Doesn't have this one yet. He's got 220 burst. And then this is a spell shield that prevents him from taking damage. And then you do... This depends on how much they're stuck in the AoE. So you're mostly physical damage, and you hit like once every 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds I can count you for 90 damage. Something like that. Something close. And then Lena has 235 plus 80. 315 with some physical damage. And then Shadow Shaman 260 plus 60. So your Void Spirit is about 350 magical damage, Lena's about 315 and 320. If we add Lena's ultimate, which does 500, Lena has the most magical damage, and she also brings a stun. And the stun increases the amount of damage you do, and you do percentage-based damage right now. And you have an additional setup stun for her. So you can have 1.2 plus, how much is this one? 1.6. So 2.8. Times how much damage you do. You do 90 divided by 2 is 45 physical damage per second. And then we have Lena. Attack speed bonus. Oh man, that makes... I don't know how to calculate attack speed. We'll just say she does 1 damage a second at 72. And then we look at maybe Void Spirit, and he does 80 about once per second. So we'll just say he does like 75. So you get another 537 damage. So if you bring 2 heroes, you have the Lena yourself and the Void Spirit, Anti-Mage dies, as long as you set up the stun correctly. So you need to know who sets up the stun first. If it's Shaman and he comes, that's great because he's got Hex. If you have Pit of Malice, Anti-Mage can't spell shield that, so you have to just blink away. As long as you initiate from Fog and he can't see you, that's great. It's easier to land than Lena's stun. Lena can still set up because he your Lena has been landing stuns on this guy. So as long as you set up and you coordinate, Anti-Mage dies. You also have the option of Spectre. Once Spectre hits level 6, finish and follow the Anti-Mage. Your Void Spirit can also track the Anti-Mage because he's got mobility. And if you bring Shadow Shaman with Lena, you get a lot of physical damage because it is... How long is this stun? 2.75 plus 1.25 plus your stun plus Lena's stun. And we'll see how much damage that does without the Faceless Void. Because he's going to be sitting there stunning the guy, so he gets maybe one attack off. Where is it? So 1.25 plus Hex and Shackles plus 2.75. And then your stun is 1.2. I ended up adding those. Whoops. There we go. You get 608 plus the 600 extra damage. So you'd have 1200 damage, and not including your Firestorm, which does percentage based. You get about 3% of his 700 health twice to 3 times. And then you also get the individual components of the damage. So it's like 6 seconds, so that's the full duration if he's stuck by Shadow Shaman. And that ends up being 300 magical damage plus 3%. So you'd have more than enough if Shadow Shaman showed up to your lane with the Lena. You'd have about enough if the Void came up to your lane. So eventually Shadow Shaman should leave the Spectre and start putting pressure on this top lane. Shadow Shaman doesn't. Okay, Lena disconnects. Uh-oh. You can't really put pressure on this Anti-Mage to make him leave the lane at level 4 or 5. But right now you could just start forcing them to leave this lane and putting tower pressure. Because you could take this tower right now at 8 minutes, and then you could rotate mid and clear out this jungle, and then Anti-Mage stuck farming Ancients without a Battle Fury. That's what should happen. It doesn't because Lena disconnects. Okay. And then you die. Now the game becomes hard. They're up by 1. And you haven't lost any towers yet. But oh well. You're not winning this without getting some sort of lead or the enemy making mistakes. Spectre died, Shadow Shaman died. This is about as bad as it can get for early game. Your carry dies, their carry doesn't. Carry gets a net worth lead. He's not he's not at a battlefield yet, which is
Dire's
or even
middle
close.
tower is under attack.
I think because he goes Mask of Madness.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
So you did a good job harassing him early game, but now he's jungling instead of hitting the wave. Okay, so he's fine farming, that's fine. Where are you? We run at the Anti-Mage. Set up for a gank. And he doesn't lock him into the Malice. Whoops. But you set up correctly. You rooted him, and that's fine. And then we go mid, and we just defend it. Free camera, player perspective. So far, you were doing fine. The game is just hard right now because of the lever. Making mistakes, and that's going to happen even until you get to the higher levels. It's fine, but the chat is funny. You're not killing this DK. So you just pit clear the creep waves, keep your card alive. I have it on 4 times speed. Did you click on that? Hotkeys. We don't have preemptive regen. If you're doing this, you should have clarities or mangoes or something to make sure you can spam these spells. Because it costs you 230 every time you use a spell, and you're also using them to farm. You don't have the mana put up.
Radiant structures are fortified.
230. You get stunned. This is on cooldown. You can't clear the creep wave. The fortify kind of helps, but it's not going to clear the creep wave. It's good to try and keep this tower alive, but you walk the wrong way trying to get through them. They know where you are. Instead, free camera, walk around this way through the trees. You have Quelling Blade. You can cut one of these trees. They don't know where you are. You put down the Firestorm, put down the Pit of Malice. If they try and chase you through it, you should be okay, be able to back off, get another one off. You're not exactly the best at D-push because you can't escape if they all go on you, but it's something. Keeps the tower alive. You don't die. Good. And notice Lena comes back right as you die. If you had just survived a little bit longer, you would have been fine. And your tower still has some HP left. So if you were still alive for this fight, you could put down the Pit of Malice, you could put down Firestorm, get more out of it, and get 3 heroes. You shouldn't be the one initiating because you have these AoE spells that work better as more people try and come to
Radiant's
reinforce.
middle tower has fallen.
Let Lena maybe initiate, or let Shadow Shaman initiate because he's got this instant spell. You can set up the pit so that these people can land their spells, but you have better teamfight spells. What is the cooldown? 19 seconds. But it has a 12-second duration, so you have 7 seconds where it's not available. And that's actually not too bad.
Regeneration.
So you can use it. It sets it up. If they decide to continue to fight in that area, then your teammates can start following up. This one has a 12-second duration. I want to point out that you walking up to this tower right now, while this creep wave is right here, means that all of their heroes can respond mid rather than up here, because this isn't a threat. There's no threat on this tower right now, so no one actually has to deal with it, and the anti-mage is just free farming, and he's not at risk of dying, so there's no reason all of the enemy heroes can't just run at you right now. And we're not strong enough to come up against a 5 kill deficit by herself or with the Lena who's been AFK for the last 5 minutes. So bad idea. Don't walk up to this tower while this creep wave is here. You just defend, make sure that there's backdoor protection enabled, and not die. That's all we had to do right now. Shadow Shaman is still playing bottom with the Spectre. Where's the Spectre? Spectre's top. Okay, Spectre's doing something. That's fine. I don't know why these guys are bottom.
Middle tower is under attack. Dire are scanning.
Bounty.
So
Hunting bounties.
this had the potential to be a terrible fight. Like, your Spectre showed up, Spectre's farmed kind of, but you guys are still behind. This is not a good play. And everybody TPs into this fight. Let me go back a little bit. Lena does a stupid TP. TP's right in vision of the entire enemy team, and then they just stun her and almost kill her. So instead of TPing into this tower, which is basically the same distance, it's not good. It's not good. Everybody's pinging. Don't die, don't die, don't die. You're gonna die.
Radiant structures are
Snapfire
fortified.
ulti. You guys fortify even though there's no creeps under your tower. And then Lina respawns.
Radiant's middle
TP's
tower
under
is under
vision.
attack.
Dragonite comes up stunned. And then
are
everybody
scanned.
starts trying to kill Lina. Then Spectre TPs. Not a good TP. Does Spectre have Haunt? Spectre did not have Haunt because she used it to kill the anti-mage up top, so that's fine. And then Lina dies. And then Shadow Shaman TP's in. You TP in. And then you get 2 kills. So it traded evenly, but instead someone just depushes the wave, keeps it out of the tower, makes sure that the cart dies, and that's what the fortify is for. So rather than fortifying just because you're dying under the tower and there's 3 heroes under the tower, the fortify is your emergency depush if nobody can do it. It kills the creeps so that the enemy can't take this tower. Then you have Spectre pushing here, you have Void pushing here, you have Shaman who used his wards on enemy heroes that are trying to escape. Shaman could be pushing this wave, put the wards on this tower. You could be pushing this wave. Like, I think Lina would be better as depush, but that didn't happen. And then somebody could cut the creep wave up here at the tier 3 or the tier 2 and prevent them from getting any creep waves mid and threaten to take this tower, threaten to take this tower. Somebody's running at the anti-mage. It's important that you don't just decide to fight them because they're at your tower. They need to get as little objectives as possible, and that's what the defense is for, and you have to catch up. So focus on what your defensive role is, especially as Underlord. I think because you don't have your ultimate, you are just range depush, don't die, get the creep waves off of the tower, make sure to enable the backdoor protection. That's all you need to do until you level up to get your ultimate. Pit of Malice is great as a team fight ultimate, so if your team is winning, you can TP back, and then you can start cleaning up kills. But right now you're not strong enough to just walk at them because you have 3k gold missing. They're up in experience by 7 kills, and your Lina was AFK for 5 minutes. 7 minutes. Okay, so 7 minutes. You're behind by a lot. I don't have Dota Plus, so I can't see the experience graph, but let's look at hero level. Lina's at the bottom. Most of the heroes are up top. Oh no, that's your team. So actually you have a lot of experience on them, but your supports are low. So maybe you can fight if you bring your cores here. Dragonite is over leveled for what he should be doing. Net worth. Your team is at the bottom by quite a bit, and they are pretty farmed. Where is... that doesn't tell me anything. Anyway,
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
I'm just saying that shouldn't have gone as well as it did. And you use an ultimate that's great for taking towers to just try and push them back. And then you start trying to chase them, and then for some reason your team decides to put wards
Radiant's
down here
bottom tower is
and to
under
play
attack.
around this area. Just somebody de-push this wave. I don't think it should be Spectre, but Spectre can. And then get wards up here because they're dead. And then the next fight that happens, instead of happening around this area, and then you proceed to take fight and try and fight this tower, and then try and take this tier 2. You take a fight around this part of the map, take this tier 2, and then take the outpost. And now you have this entire half of the map to farm, and then the anti-mage is stuck in his triangle, and this team has to try and push into you. I don't know why their entire team is up top protecting the anti-mage. This is very weird. He doesn't even have Battle Fury yet, and they're fighting around him. So this is a very strong play by the team. But if you had vision up here instead of down here, you could see this coming attack off instead of everybody dying to the Sapphire ultimate. Whoops! But notice how this lane is pushed, so they don't actually get this tier 1.
We are not that.
But don't fight this when they're this strong and they're all grouped up. You need to have towers pushed in, threaten to take their towers, and then one person is going to de-push, and maybe one person will come in to help stop any TPs that come out, prevent them from cutting. Void could be up here cutting, making sure that this creep wave doesn't show up here, making sure that they don't take this tower. But they get a tower.
Radiant's top tower has fallen.
Losing tier 1s is important, but it's not the biggest deal because tier 2s are so strong. Now everybody TPs here instead of moving around the map trying to farm and spread out.
Radiant are scanning.
We need to get this creep wave pushed. We need to get this creep wave pushed. I've fogged both teams on, so let's do player
Dire's bottom
perspective view.
tower is under attack.
We see 2 heroes here, 1 hero down here. There should be more vision on this side, but that's your team. Fine. This smoke is really weird. I think it's just to get vision up on the mid lane, but we should be getting vision up in this area rather than trying to get it up around mid. And then this wave isn't pushed. And then Spectre TP's in to push it, so that's fine. But rather than walking up to this tower, we wait until they respawn here and show somewhere. Like, this is making space for the Spectre, but Spectre is now like, oh man, they're fighting, so I'm gonna show up. Doesn't have Han. You get a double, and the only person you lost is the person that's underfarmed. Okay, that's fine, because you had vision up here, but imagine if we had this wave pushed, and we had vision up here, we get this tower. Because they're just sitting mid right now. And Mage is free farming.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
Farming this triangle.
Dire's structures
So it's not free
are
farm, that's
fortified.
fine. But he still doesn't have Battle Fury. 20-minute Battle Fury on anti-mage. So you did something by putting pressure on them. But I think the only reason that he's at this point where he doesn't have a Battle Fury is because he was participating in the fights, and he shouldn't be doing that.
Death tax.
None to burn.
Making sure to keep our damage up, this is fine. This wave needs to be pushed though, and nobody's doing it. Why is he not doing it? Why is he farming the triangle? This wave needs to be pushed. You can farm this camp. I think it's not pushed because there's no vision up here. And that's the scary part. And then everybody TP'd bottom. Enemy team groups up like this because this wave isn't pushed and this wave is not at their tier 2. The waves are not at their tier 2, so they're just grouping up and running at you. It's close, but it's not there. Coming by his back, it's fine. Get soul ripped and almost die. This guy gets healed so you don't die. So that's really lucky, and he dies. And now, because we're all bottom, it's like, oh, well, let's push this tier 2. But Anti-Mage is sitting here, farming creep waves, and now he's got Battle Fury, and this is where it starts to get bad. You do take this tier 1, but it doesn't really do anything for you. Whereas if the same fight had happened up here when you were strong enough to fight them and you had vision of the area, you would have gotten much more farm opportunities. Like, this tower doesn't mean you get the ancient camps in the triangle, it means a no net worth increase for your
Dire's
team, no
bottom
central
tower
space,
has fallen.
and this fight is not good.
Radiant's middle tower is under
They
attack.
can TP into this, Anti Mage is still farming, this creep wave isn't pushed, this creep wave isn't pushed.
Dire's
Even if you
bottom
get
tower
something
is
out of
under
this,
attack.
they just get a lot more.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
You get a kill on Undying, you should not get any more than this. And then Anti-Mage shows up and starts killing you guys. Wonderful. Anti-Mage doesn't die, because Lina doesn't have mana to spend to LSA or to what's it called? It's a certain word. To use the ulti. So, Anti-Mage doesn't die. You get some vision up, but that fight is the game loser right there. Where is current golds? Not current gold. Net worth. So everyone in their position is over farmed than you. And now... Oh, wait.
This will hasten my footfalls.
That's weird. Yeah, their entire team is just out farming you now. And it's lost you the game because you were grouping up when the waves weren't been pushed. So I do like that you were participating in defending waves, and now I think you take your point in your ultimate now that you have everything maxed. You could be putting tower pressure instead of trying to fight. And it's good that you're fighting because you have these AoE spells set up for your team. But fighting is 5 versus 5 when the enemy is clearly stronger than you just means that they're going to overwhelm you eventually because they have more resources than you. So instead you need to catch up, you need to get more map control, you need to make them split up, you need to threaten to take more objectives than they're going to get and make sure that they're getting as little objectives as possible. And there's other people that could be clearing waves. Like, Void Spirit isn't going to die if he does a deep push. He'll show up, he'll use his AoE ability to clear the creep wave, he jumps out. And then you can continuously do that for several minutes, and then you can have somebody... I don't know who would do it if Void is doing it, but maybe Spectre could be cutting creep waves up top here. And then you could have Lina or a Shadow Shaman clearing the creep wave and depushing because they have together enough damage to clear a creep wave with one spell or 2 spells. And then you could have yourself and Spectre hitting towers, so you get 2 towers for the price of 1, and they're probably not even going to get this tower. This ends up being an okay fight. And you get 2 for somebody who wasn't particularly useful. And then you lose one of your most farm forwards. Oh, he doesn't die. No one has dust because no one was checking his items. And Anti-Mage is simply fun. And then he shows up and kills him. Void Spirit dies. And you're the only one left alive.
Dire are scanning. Radiant's bottom tower is under attack. Radiant structures
At
are
this point,
fortified.
they just start getting towers, getting objectives. I don't think this is winnable because they're up by 10 kills.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
You had the same amount of
Radiant's
map
bottom
control.
tower has fallen.
Let's look at their vision. You have about the same amount of
No
vision.
such thing as too much damage.
And now we start pushing this way. So this is fine. We have Dark Rift. You know what to do with your hero. But early, when you don't have your ability to split push, it seems like you just default to fighting, and that works when your team is ahead and actually winning, because you have strong AoE team fight spells. You want to group up with your team and get this extra damage from killing heroes, but
'Tis mine.
you need to make them respond to you. It's not under their tier 2.
consider thyself
Everybody's fighting bottom.
purified.
We have 300 damage. If they group up and we see them grouped up mid, we hit this tier 2. We don't have our ultimate, which means we can't realistically do this. But
Dire's
TPing
top
back
tower
mid
is
is
under
not the
attack.
play.
Radiant's middle
We got a
tower
bunch of
is
other
under
people that can
attack.
de-push.
Radiant structures are
We
fortified.
fortified, and they fortified. And now we take this team fight where we're under farm, they have ultimates. Die. He's got a BKB, so he doesn't care about your spells anymore.
Radiant's middle tower
has
is
a
under
bash.
attack.
Pays dearly.
No, okay, I thought somebody bashed it. But now they get this tower, and they can
Dire's
start
turret
walking up and
has
taking
been
initiative.
killed.
The Spectre dice, almost hits.
Radiant's
Then
middle
there's 5
tower
heroes.
is under attack.
Ignite his ulti. So they don't get the tier 3. Maybe? Maybe they do. Oh yeah, they definitely get this. So at this point the game is over. There's still things that maybe you could do if they make huge mistakes, but this net worth lead on anti-mage, the fact that you lost a mid tier 1 or mid tier 3, and you are so underfarmed as a team that you can't fight them as 5, means you have to smoke out, you have to get heroes at their tier 2s, and you have to be cutting this wave to stall out the game. But because you can't enable backdoor on this tower anymore because it's gone, there's no pressure for them to stop. Free camera. One of the other things to note is if there's a creep wave here, which you can't prevent them from doing anymore, it disables backdoor on all of these towers. So as long as they have the mid creep wave here, or even I think it starts once they get to this circle, they can take any of the towers they want regardless of the creep waves. They just need someone who tanks, and they have DK. And DK could tank the tower. Anti-mage could technically tank the tower if he's got Vanguard, but he doesn't, so whatever. The idea is still the same. You don't have any way of preventing them from winning the game anymore. You have to kill them, and you can't kill them because you don't have enough farm, and you don't have any way of catching up because you don't stop them from taking any of your towers anymore. So this is where the game is over, and you gotta sit through another 15 minutes. I end up killing them and catching up, which is nice because you have these team fight spells, but they're now 20 kills ahead of you basically, and the game is over. So explosion, congratulations. If your Lena didn't leave at the very beginning, it probably been a lot closer, but there's still things that you could have done that keep you from losing the game. And your first 2 to 3 deaths were preventable, and after that you weren't playing in a way that defends and accounts for the fact that you were losing the game. You had one person that was underfarmed, and you had to play catch up because your core had died. Their core did not die, or their carry did not die. Your carry did die, and they had more map pressure. They were able to group up more frequently, things like that. You just need to make sure that the map is in your favor before you start grouping up and taking these fights where you still won because you were relatively even and you had spells to spend and they didn't. But the idea is still you didn't get very much out of it because you won the fight, or when you won the fight. And then they took fights when the waves were pushed, so they got more out of it. They got more map control, they got more wards up, they had better vision. They could farm better even after you killed them. They could start taking towers, threatening to take towers, start learning how to play defensively and not die and not lose objectives, and then threaten to take enemy objectives. Play the map. Don't try and team fight. Don't try and kill them. Like, you can team fight if everybody shows up and it's a good situation, but don't expect your team to 5v5 when you're losing. That's probably my best advice. It seemed awkward, but you were doing your job. And your question was between 10 and 20 minutes after you took the first tier 1, what were you supposed to do? And the answer is just not lose. If your void isn't pushing that top waves, then you could be doing it even though you don't have your ultimate, because you do have the ability to clear creep waves relatively well, and you threaten to take that top tier 2 or top tier 1, whatever it was, with the bonus damage, because you do a lot of physical damage. It's like 200, 300, depending on how many creeps you kill. And then that forces heroes top, and then you can just leave as long as they don't have any stuns. They got 1 stun. If this is if Snapfire gets Ags, then yes, she can stun you when she get Ags. So 10 minutes, she doesn't have Ags. 20 minutes, she doesn't have Ags. This guy can stop you. So as long as Dragon Knight and Earth Spirit show somewhere, you can just start hitting a tier 2. You don't need to immediately show up to the fight. And it's better that you show up late, because you have these AoE spells that work better when the enemies are grouped up and trying to fight you guys. So rather than you being the one to go in first, let Shadow Shaman initiate. He stuns somebody, shackles somebody, Lena stuns someone, shackles someone, Laguna Blade, and then they die. And then this guy can start chasing them, and if they're still fighting you and trying to chase your team, you have this AoE stun nuke that just kills them. And then Spectre can also chase them. So you don't necessarily need to be the one that shows up. The creep waves just need to be pushed. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, you can let me know, and we can talk on Reddit, we can talk on Discord. Thanks for watching.